Our next guest has an op-ed out today on education and AI that's titled, "We Created AI-Based Learning Tools for U.S. Classrooms. Teachers Matter More Than Ever." He argues that while AI can support learning, it's the teachers who remain the most critical factor in student success. Joining us right now is the author of that piece, Salman Khan. He is the founder and CEO of the Khan Academy, also the author of a new book that's focused on AI and education that's called Brave New Words. Sal, thank you for joining us this morning. And I think this has been a question on many people's minds for at least a couple of years at this point. AI and what it means in the education process. Where do you come down on it?
Yeah, there's a lot of dimensions to it. The op-ed that came out this morning, it's really about this idea that I think sometimes people think that you could just take technology and throw it into a classroom or throw it in front of a student and everything perfect will happen. And in the early days of Khan Academy, I was a little bit naive about that too. I just imagined, well, if you give people a tool that's super engaging and that can do anything you ask it to, they'll learn. But what we've learned over the years, and we now have about 1.5 million kids formally in formal partnerships using our tools, Khanmigo, using AI in the classroom. And what we've seen over and over again is no matter how good the tool is, you have to make sure the students are engaged in it. And the single most powerful game mechanic in a classroom is that teacher that is holding the students accountable, encouraging them. And what we're seeing is a lot of districts are trying to adopt some form of an AI tool, either out of desperation because they're afraid of cheating, et cetera, or because even better, they want to improve academic outcomes. But the ones that are being successful are the ones that are really investing in the human systems, having some form of celebrating the classrooms, the schools that are able to engage well, that are able to drive student outcomes. And it really does happen at that classroom level. It's less about the student than the teacher, and making sure they have the time and the professional development to actually invest in the tools.
What does that even mean? I mean, it sounds good. I can completely follow along. It makes sense to me. But how do you actually get those tools used properly? What does that look like in a classroom?
Yeah, and in the piece I write about Newark, New Jersey, which has been working with us for about 2-3 years now. And at first, I was a little bit skeptical because it is a very large, complex school district. But the leadership there, especially in the North Ward of Newark, New Jersey, as they've used Khan Academy, and it isn't just AI, it really is AI in conjunction with everything else that can help students learn, which is really just getting enough practice, enough feedback, being held accountable. But what the leadership there does is they're able to track at a district level what's going on in every classroom and every school. And they celebrate the teachers in the schools that are showing a lot of engagement, where they're showing progress. And the ones that aren't, they're not penalizing them because they know those teachers have a lot on their plate, but they're trying to work with them and figure out how they can support them better. And they're in a world where they're seeing well over 50%, really approaching 60 or 70% of students get to a level of engagement where it really is driving their academic outcomes. This isn't just an efficacy study, although we've done that with them. They're now seeing all of their math scores in particular move up across the district, which you're not seeing in most large urban school districts in America.
So how do you take that and just look at kids who have basically been asking some of these large language models to write papers for them?
Yeah, that's a real problem. I've been doing my informal surveys of a lot of college students, and it sounds like they're all doing it. And what I write in my book, first of all, the cheating was going on before ChatGPT. To some degree, ChatGPT just leveled the playing field, or just made it painfully low friction to not use it. And so I think professors, teachers really have to ask themselves, why were they assigning the essay in the first place? If it was to understand how someone can structure their own thoughts, their own knowledge, I think you are going to have to do more of that in class, do more of that proctored. I think at the other extreme, it is a skill to use these tools. At Khan Academy, I know pretty much every firm I talk to, leaders are encouraging their employees to use these tools more. So I think there's going to be a whole other set of assignments where, okay, I don't want you to just write the business plan. I want you to start the business. I want you to do the research. And then there's tools in between. We're developing them as well, where you can write with the AI, and the AI can provide some transparency to the teacher of what's going on.
Hey, Sal, I wanted to ask you, there's a school called Alpha. It's actually a private school. It's open. There's one opening in New York City. I believe they're in maybe half a dozen to a dozen other cities in America right now. where the curriculum is 2 hours a day. That's the entire academic curriculum, only 2 hours a day. But the idea is that they can 10x how quickly a kid learns because they're learning effectively using AI with a computer in front of them. They're not being taught by a teacher. There's no lecture, if you will, and they then spend the next 4 hours after that doing sort of interactive programming and other things around life skills and trying to interact with each other. Bill Ackman's been a big advocate of this school. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I'm reasonably familiar with alpha schools. They've always been heavy users of Khan Academy in that 2-hour time period, and their view hasn't been that the 2 hours is the only place of learning, but it's where you get that real, let's call it highly concentrated practice and feedback. So Khan Academy has always been a part of what they do. They've also been using the Khan Academy AI tools. They've been supplementing it with their own AI tools. And I am a believer that you can get a lot. Our efficacy studies show that if students are able to put in even 60 minutes a week into that type of practice, that they can accelerate, depending on the study, 30–40% more than expected. And we're seeing it my children go to a very similar school out here called Khan Lab School, which I helped start over a decade ago. There's also something we run with Arizona State University, Khan World School, where we've been seeing, I don't know about 10x, but we've been seeing 2–3 grade levels a year for students who are engaged. But to the earlier point, it is all about engagement. If the student, you can have the best tool on the planet, but if you're not really driving engagement in that, then you're not going to see those outcomes. But it's not just those 2 hours. Those 2 hours essentially free up the rest of the day to do more interactive games, simulations, Socratic dialogue. Right. And that's what we do in our school, too, at Khan Lab School.
So, Sal, one thing that I think about, and one of the, it sounds great in practice. I was talking to an educator who says, look, boys don't like to read. But if you ask them what their favorite things are, they might say, I love Marvel characters and I love basketball. And so all of a sudden, if you wanted to, at grade level, you could generate via AI, effectively choose your own adventure books that somehow merge Marvel characters and basketball, which would then excite kids to read, which would be a great thing. But at some level, do we also need kids, and this maybe goes to grit and everything else, to learn to read and do things they wouldn't otherwise want to do?
I think so. I think we all want our kids to sometimes have to take their medicine, do things that aren't the most pleasant. But I also don't think we have to be super parochial about it, that the future is also going to be, right now you or I, or maybe let's call it 5 years ago, you or I had to read a dense research paper to understand what's going on now. But now we can throw it into some AI model and it can give us a summary. It can create a podcast about it. So there are ways to consume dense information that, if you're doing it in the workplace, why would you spend 2 hours barely understanding that dense research paper where you could spend 20 minutes and get a much better essence of it? So I think it's both. It's good to use the tools, but if you're really going to test someone's ability, which I think you do every now and then, to understand dense text, to understand data, then yeah, you have to do it in a proctored way or with a tool that has more safeguards on it. Yeah,
like no electronics at all seems like the best way. Pencils down.
Yeah, at our school, somewhat ironically, we don't, we're very careful about when the kids use electronics. They're not allowed to bring their phones. We have analog hour for the kids where they have to be bored without a computer. And there's other things they can do. They can play board games. They can draw. They can read a book. So I think those types of skills are really important. And, but intelligent use of technology can also really accelerate things.